Okay, so for our first code along, we're going to do a little tidying up because it's been a few days since I've finished doing the solution for week 10. And sometimes what happens, fairly common in coding, is you code something and then you come back and realize, man, I could have done that much cleaner. And especially I've noticed this can happen when you integrate somebody else's code. So let's do that with some of that custom validation. And then we'll move on and talk about other topics around functions. Okay? Okay, so over here I have my live server up and running. I have my VS Code. Do make sure you have the solution coded and you have that committed before you start into this work. So when I set this up, when I walked you through the solution, I had set up these three variables. And when I looked at it today, I realized, you know what, this is kind of not consistent. Not kind of, it's not consistent with the way I've set up globals. And I think I even said it when I was coding it. So let's actually fix that and in the process make our code much cleaner. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these three variables. And this order actually is fairly important. So copy them, go into global, and paste them into here. Okay, I have this hanging out because I was playing a minute ago. So first paste them and then come back over here and comment them out for a minute. Okay, so what we're going to do is what we've kind of done before, not kind of, but, and in this case the naming, I also didn't like the name I gave them. So I'm going to do F first name, last name, make them somewhat short but all uppercase because they're setting in the global file and they represent that. Okay, so then I would export them, which by the way you can actually export each individual line. Let's do that. I'm going to copy the export command and I believe this will work fine. And actually now I'm going to copy it with the space so that when I do the next one, and I could use the multi-line function, that'd probably be better, but do it line by line, it'd be okay. Then I'm going to get rid of that. Okay. And then I'm going to come back over to main here, and now here, right? I don't need that, but I do need FN, do last name, and I do need submit. Okay, so now that I have those three, for the reference to those elements on the index on the DOM. Now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to update this to be F first name, right there, last name, global. Okay. Now I don't want to test yet because I could. Actually, I could go ahead and test right now because really, and it never hurts to make sure that still fires, and I'd recommend you go do it. I'm pretty confident it does. Sometimes confidence can get you in trouble. But when I was looking at this code, I realized, man, we can make this so much cleaner. So we're going to do that because we already have the references to the DOM, and all we need is those values. And also here we're actually referencing again those elements we had named before in the values. So this is duplicate. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to comment out those two. And in here, and here's the other thing, is I'm using these to declare a variable that I then use in the conditional. So what I would do here is I would also just take this first, and actually let's do this. Let's actually update this to be what it is, which is F name, which is why I'm doing all this to begin with because it's just much cleaner. Now that I've done that, I'm going to copy this because that is really what I think I might need an extra bracket or parentheses here, but I'll find out in a minute. And then I'd come back here. So when we get rid of this code in a minute, and by the way, we're still not done because we still need to reference the values here, which we can do, no problem, right? But for now, let's just see if anything in our code is not working. So I'd come over here, and I'd go, okay, so those two things, it looks like the reference to these, first name, that should have been exactly the same. Hang on just a second, let me check that out. Okay, and all my copying, I just forgot to bring over that CSS, so I'm going to do that again just to make sure that worked, which is good, good. And now what I'm going to do is put a breakpoint right here, and see if this works, right? Taking off one of them, so at least we trigger that. Oh yes. Yeah, so it did. Actually, it did go ahead here. I forgot to, but the good news is it did give us an error, but it's inside of the if. I don't think it gave us that before, so let's fix that one as well. And what that is the submit that we set up here, right? So in this case, this is the submit. I don't know. This looks so much cleaner to me. I hope it looks cleaner to you. And sometimes it's just good. Again, programming is often about iteration. You do something, you figure out a better way to do it. Okay? Let's see if that now works. Leave that one blank. Let's see, now I'm inside of here. Hit submit. Good. Now I think it's because of my oftentimes, and you guys have seen this happen with me where I have to restart it, but the good news is here that worked, and I can see that that worked here. So that's one thing. And now what I'm going to do, and I recommend go in there and get rid of that stuff, shouldn't need it anymore, right? Go in and get rid of this stuff so we clean up our file, and I think it just looks better. Okay, so now let's fix the last of it, which is in this case when I call first, when I want to pass it, I just can say value and last name dot value. Okay. And by the way, I could actually get rid of both of these two, right? As well. Like we could do this where it says house house size. And then we could do this. We could take that whole thing with the parse, copy it, and here, paste it, and then here, this. I believe that should work fine because it'll run this, which actually kind of leads into some of the function stuff we're going to talk about. But let's see if that breaks anything. I hadn't actually planned on doing that one, but I think it's a good one to also do. Good. Okay, let's see if our in this case I'm going to see how my data looks to see if I've thrown off anything. No, and I wouldn't because I've set those values for that object up here, and I'm still, when I come into this function, I've named the input values, right? I'm passing parameters and arguments. Again, we're going to revisit functions, so it's a good time to start talking about this, right? So this is your argument, right? And when we pass it in, it becomes a parameter. So, you know, it really depends on you in this case, if you like. I think this line is not the most attractive thing I've ever written, but I like how concise this is, and it gives us less to look at. But the key would be knowing what each step, right, how this is referencing the values. And by the way, know that this will parse that value before it passes it into the function. Okay, one other thing I want to do is on the index file. I've been meaning to do this, and maybe you already have, but let's get rid of this hard-coded stuff. It's just as less I have to look at and you have to look at. And actually, I did this already. It must just been one of my copyings. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this. It's just often good after you've been doing some work is to go back and and again, you always want to make sure that you're testing everything and testing as many types of different conditions as you can. Like I would do a delete here. Matter of fact, I would take that off. I'd do a delete. That works. I'd do an edit and then hit submit. Everything seems okie dokie. All right. So, I hope that looks better. I like it. I like it. So let's go ahead and commit this with tidying. I should put tidying up, and then let's start talking about more about functions.